Because the truth of the matter is that the beautiful football, the passing, the guys who are comfortable, Ugbamnandu Shugela, has not gotten us anywhere. For me, if I was to choose a candidate for a national team job, or to coach Bafana, let's say, I would go to coach Jose Rivero. Do you stay at Pirates, where you are a South African star? Do you go to Sundowns, where maybe there's a bigger profile, where maybe you can play in a Club World Cup? Or do you go overseas? We should be interrogating the development of Abumtu Shabalala. We should be interrogating the development of Abufundo Vilagazi, Abupuso Ditejani. We should be interrogating the development of Abo Velepai, Abo Partman. I am worried for Mofokeng. I am worried for his development. Welcome everybody to the George Mokoena podcast. My name is George Mokoena. I am your host, and this is a place where we come together and I look at some of the stories and some of the things I've been thinking about over the past few weeks, and I come and speak to you about them in the hopes of starting some conversations that can make our football stronger and better. It's not that I'm right, but it's also that I'm putting it on the table for us to discuss. So feel free to jump into the comments, to share to your WhatsApp groups, to do all of those things. Also, the podcast is now on Spotify, so please, man, because hey, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit better on that side if you want to support the show. So let's get straight into what we're going to speak about today. Guys, why do we dislike Bafana so much? Why is it so hard for us to give credit to Hugo Bruce and Bafana for the work that they've done? I did a post-match review of the game that we played versus Lesotho. A win. We played versus Lesotho, it was a win. And I said in that thing that we could be one of the standout teams in Africa, the head boys of the emerging class of countries that are putting their hands up right now. Because there's a shift that happened. A lot of the big, strong countries, Abo Ghana, Abo Cameroon, are struggling right now. And there's countries that are putting up their hands to fill those voids. You think about the Namibians who are doing incredibly well. You think about even Lesotho, relative to what everybody is. Think about how well Lesotho has been doing. And South Africa, as a re-emerging country, could be one of the lead countries, especially owing to the fact that we've now got 9 African spots for a World Cup. Possibility of a 10th, but you have to go through a playoff. Why is it so hard? You know, I had comments of people telling me that, it's just Lesotho. How can we clap hands for Lesotho? I had people telling me about other players that should have been included into the club, into the squad, and how Hugo Bruce is not that good of a coach and all of that stuff. Guys, at this point, it's undeniable. I'm not one of Hugo Bruce's biggest fans. I have been opposed to Hugo Bruce since he arrived. But guys, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the stats, the results that have come. Hugo Bruce has played 41 games. He's won 22. He's got 13 draws and he's only lost 6 games. We are unbeaten in World Cup qualifiers at home. Let me give you stats. That means that he's won or drawn 85% of the games that he's coached for Bafana, excluding Bokosafa, excluding Pochet, the ones that he's been in charge of. Opta Chabu says that we have scored at least once in the 9 AFCON qualifiers that we've played, 2023 and now in 2025. We finished 3rd at AFCON. What more does Bafana need to do in order for people to just get in line and support the national team? Guys, people are filling stadiums again. There's a vibe. People are like Amorile are being brought into the team. This is an incredible national team. And us pushing against it unnecessarily makes no sense. I love Hugo Bruce, and I love him more than anything because he's also tuned us out. He's doing what needs to be done. Because the truth of the matter is that the beautiful football, the passing, the guys who are comfortable, Ugbamnandu Shugela, has not gotten us anywhere. 15 years now since we played a World Cup. 15 years. We didn't even qualify for that one. So maybe it's time for us to put our egos aside and our beautiful football aside and our wants and our needs and all of that stuff aside and say that these guys have done incredibly well. Now, he's not perfect. I'm not saying he's perfect. I still worry a little bit about the squad rotation. I still worry a little bit about some of the tactics he picks up. I still worry a little bit about some of the favorites that he has in the team. Abu Pesitao and people like that. But that's a conversation for a different day. And it doesn't mean that I don't like the team. But some of us, when we speak about this Bafana team, I think we tune out so many things that are happening. And we have our own wants and needs that override the fact that we're getting results. And maybe if more of our teams adopted some of that attitude to say, guys, we need to go win. You don't have the luxury of all of the best players. You don't have the luxury of being a cultured team on the African continent. You don't have the luxury of doing all of those things. All you can do is come out every day and win. And Abu Hugo Bruce, Abu Helman Kelele, Abu Sinesi Pomali, Abu Grant Johnson have made sure that we are here. So can we support them? The truth of the matter is that they have done better than any other coach, barring Clive Barker, let's say, barring the early runs, Abu Sheikhs, maybe Uchomo. But those are the late 90s and early 2000s. Let's get behind the boys, because one of the biggest things is that national team coaching is hard. And that is the second topic that I want to get into. You know, when you mention Hugo Bruce and the job that he's done, we often have so many people that we want to put ahead of others merely because we like them. And we put aside the results and how everything is done. We do it locally. You look at Kaizer Chiefs. The best performing league coach for Kaizer Chiefs of recent history just so happens to be Ernst Middendorp. Before that, it was Stuart Baxter. Two people that, because we don't necessarily like the way that they played, we try and bypass those things and we bring in Abu Atazwani. And not to say that Atazwani did badly, but he didn't do as well as these ones. But we kind of look at this thing and we say, this one was better than this one because this one looks better. This one looks better to us and speaks to us a lot better, regardless of where it finished. And I think we do that when it comes to national team coaching. Because, you know, you mentioned Bruce, and a lot of people will bring up a Rulani. Rulani must come and coach. You know, Benny is now coaching the Kenyan national team. But I want to focus a little bit on the differences between club coaching and national team coaching. Now, the obvious one is very simple. It's time. Club coaches have more time with players. You have training every day. You have games almost every week, some every 3 days. You are with these players week in, week out in controlled environments where you control them. Nothing changes outside of the transfer windows, but you've got these guys over and over and over and over and over again. By and large, you can put in your philosophy, your tactics. You can implement all of those things into a club team because you've got the time. And you've got, you know, the relationships with the players. Outside of the time on the pitch, there's probably personal things that you understand and know, that you can deal with. When it comes to national teams, you see, we're seeing Bafana right now. It's March. We're going to see them twice. We're probably only going to see them in September. And then again in December, owing to the fact that it's AFCON. But can you imagine being a coach that doesn't have that daily access? And you can only imagine how worse it gets when you look at the relationship that PSL teams, SAFA, the PSL, that whole body, the type of relationships that they have with the national team coaches. So that means you're only getting these guys for a week. You're only getting these guys for 2 weeks max. And part of that is playing, is preparing, is then recovery, post matches and things like that. It's a completely different mindset. And there's a reason why I believe club coaches, national team coaches, there's a reason why I believe national team coaches tend to be older. It's because the art of coaching a national team has very little to do with your tactics and your highbrow ideals and your structures. Sometimes it just has to do with how many little tricks and tips and things that I've picked up along my career can I bring into here. It's the man management to get the guys on side. Like I said, maybe your team just lost to Orlando Pirates, and now you have to go face Hugo Bruce. Maybe you come from a dysfunctional culture from where you come from for the player. Now you got to have to go face Hugo Bruce. Maybe you come from a place where they didn't want you to play, or they didn't respect you, or they didn't see you that way, or things were starting to go wrong, or sometimes you have mental issues and things like that. And then you have to get on a plane and go face Hugo Bruce. I think sometimes we downplay those type of things when it comes to the national team. Hugo Bruce is a results-based coach, and I love it. I love the fact that he comes in and he's going, guys, yeah, we could play a beautiful football. Yeah, we could be overly defensive. There's so many different ways where we could take this team, but I want us to win. Look at the Lesotho game. Lesotho, for all intents and purposes, parks the bus. He came out and he said, okay, I'm going to play a far more attacking lineup. I'm going to bring in far more attacking players, and I'm going to play that game from that perspective. And when things go wrong, you take out Abo Pesi, you sub out the other guys, you're blooding in Abo Mofokeng, which shows an adaptability that is different to the AFCON, where some of the AFCON games were just about long balls to Makhupa, who wasn't even chosen in this run. You see, I believe national team coaching is more about player and man management than it is about tactics and tiki-taka and all of that stuff. They do play a role. Obviously, you need to know what you want your team to do. But for most of the year, you're watching players from outside. I'd imagine he has some access, but you're watching players from outside. You're watching them play. You're having to pick teams. You're having to bring these guys in. You're having to balance so many different things that I don't think we have. And an interesting question came up in the Overthinking Football WhatsApp group, where if you want to join, just send me a DM and I'll tell you how. Where I was asked, of the coaches within the league, which coaches do I think would be the best national team candidates? Or we're just throwing names against the board. So one of them was Rulani. I don't believe Rulani would be a great national team coach right now. I think tactically he's great. I'm not too sure about expectation and man management. And I think that Urulani needs time to implement his ideas. Coach Nabi was thrown into the list. I think Coach Nabi could be an incredible national team coach, and I think he is more of a national team type archetype, where he's got the quality of player around him that he doesn't have to worry about coaching them fully. But then all he has to worry about is getting them on side in terms of their attitude, their ideas, the intensity of the play. I think he's a vibes coach, and it's not a bad thing. Carlo Ancelotti, for me, is a vibes coach. So I think at national team level, when you've got exposure to all of those players and you can chop and change as you wish to make sure that they're in, I think Coach Nabi would be great there. I think Coach Cardoso might do well. But that's more down to his adaptability and his ability to change the game. Like he's able to look at a game and see it for what it is and change it and adapt to what is happening in the game. So I think that would be great. But by and large, for me, if I was to choose a candidate for a national team job or to coach Bafana, let's say, I would go to Coach Jose Rivero. And I want to point to a couple of things that make him, for me, the candidate. Number one, he came into Pirates First season, didn't have a preseason, saw the team for what it was, coached the team for what it was. Leaned a little bit, I would imagine, on Abu Mandla Ngigazi to help him out, but he got the team firing, 2 trophies in the bag. I will look at his ability to, in the Carling knockout, to take players for a couple of days and transform them. Remember, for as much as we want to say that that Carling knockout game was just a throwaway, that was a fully fledged PSL side. And we saw Abo Zwane, Nabo Hlongwane. I saw a different Zwane. I'm sorry, I saw a different Zwane than what I'd ever seen at Kaizer Chiefs. I saw a guy that wasn't lazy, that was playing in the 10, that was ticking, that was controlling the game. And I do believe that comes a lot from Coach Jose Rivero looking at him and saying, yeah, this is how it is. But I think the most important point for me is Coach Jose Rivero's ability to coach games of consequence. I think there isn't another coach in the league that is able to coach important games. Struggles in the league because obviously 30-game season, I don't think he can focus the boys for so long. But if you were to give him 4 or 5 games, if you were to make it that every time he plays, it's a pressure cooker, it's been 3 months off, now the players have to come in, now you have to win. There's a reason why he's got 5 trophies in 2.5 years. There's a reason why he's one of the most successful coaches for Orlando Pirates. There's a reason why if you were to ask me, which coach would I pick to coach a team if my life was on the line and we didn't have a long time to prepare and it was a huge game, I would choose Jose Rivero. And I think those are some of the characteristics that you need to have. I don't think Hugo Bruce would do well in club football, in everyday football, even just facing fans every day. I don't think he would be loved and beloved. He's not that loved right now, but I think it would be worse if he was a club team manager. Look at Coach Pitso. But it's the higher parts of the game that I think our Hugo Bruce bring in. It's the camaraderie, it's the leadership, it's the delegation of leadership, it's the empowerment of players. All of those things are very different to club teams. Very, very different. And that is a very tough job to do. You look at Didier Deschamps in France right now. All of the names are there. Dembele, you've got Abu Mbappe, Chouameni, you've got, Rabiot, Konate. Hey, you've got players upon players upon players upon players, the top talents in the world. He's struggling at times this year, which shows you how hard that thing is to do. So let's give credit to Coach Bruce. Let's give credit to the fact that, he's come and turned around the country. For all of the noise we're making, this was not Bafana. Top of the log, top of a World Cup qualifying log, Bafana with no calculators. Qualified for AFCON, direct. Finished 3rd at an AFCON that nobody thought we even had business being in. He almost qualified us for the World Cup starting off. That's quality. That's quality. And when we look at these people that we love, let's weigh it properly. The last thing that I want to speak about. Okay, so I know I stopped the video a lot, and a lot of you are wondering, why are you asking for money? So I wanted to show you. I asked for money because I want to do more of this. Huh? But the truth of the matter is that it took over an hour in order just to render that shot. And it takes even longer when I'm doing my normal content because, guys, here's the unsung hero of the channel. And unfortunately, Shem, but the screen is broken. I have to use a second screen, and the performance is not up to it. So I'd really love to upgrade things like that. And when you look over here, this is what the setup looks like. Rehenga di patlo and rehenga di green screen, which is a reality of being a South African content creator. Also, this is what people think is my studio. It's actually my house. So if you still don't know that I'm doing all of this from my home, then I don't know. But that is essentially what I want to do. More of these cool things. But I need you guys to please help me out by donating 50 Rand or more into this account. You know, we're fighting for multi-choice. And multi-choice, but there are subscription models all over the place. And I'd love to give the biggest quality while also being able to pay my rent and do things like that. That is where your money is going. And I promise to give you only the best content that I can if you do throw something in. So I just wanted to show you guys what I want to do with your money. I want to take this South African football and fulfill my dream of taking it into the future. But thank you guys so much. Remember, this is the bank account that you deposit into. Get back into the video. Is RELEBOHILE MOFOKENG, but I want to pivot it to what what we need to be doing when it comes to our youth. Urile is an incredible player. I think the last two videos that I did, he's been the headline. Scoring versus Sundowns, coming back and scoring for Bafana. He's been one of the form players of the season so far. Ukokomelon, Presidente Ama 2000. He's been incredible. But I think we need to have an honest conversation about him overseas. Now, I want to have it from two vantage points so that we're fair. On the one vantage point, I think of all of the youngsters that are in the country right now that play at the top level, RELEBOHILE MOFOKENG is head and shoulders above everybody. The fact that he's starting, the fact that he's contributing, the fact that he's the guy. I mean, you think back to things like the Nedbank Cup. He was the one that willed Pirates out of it. You think of that attacking unit. You know, you love the fact that he's spearheading that unit. I mean, if you look at his stats up to this point, he's got 36 games played, 10 goals and 12 assists. So that means that he's got 22 goals and assists or goal involvements in 36 games, which is incredible, especially for a 20-year-old, especially for what we've had up to this point. Now, I watched idiskitv, and there were some interesting things that were said. Shout out to Unkululego, shout out to Junior, Ubobo, Ulindo, Justice and them, shout out to them. There was a conversation that Unkululego was having to ask, was Benedict Vilagazi better than Rile at that time? Well, at that same age. Was Junior Khanye better at that same age? And it was very interesting because both of them said pretty much the same thing, which I agree with. I do believe that Tso and Junior were far better than Urile at 17. Maybe at 18, maybe even at 19. I mean, Utso at some point was captaining the Pirates. Utso was one of the players of consequence. Junior Khanye was following Uchabupule, and what derailed them, what derailed Junior was drinking and all of that stuff. But in terms of pure talent, he was up there. Utso, similarly, maybe moving around or trying to go overseas a little bit late was a little bit of an issue there. But I think Urile could relate to Utso a lot better. In that Utso, by the time he wanted to leave and go overseas, by the time he had that, you have to realize where he was going and who he was competing against. And as a country, we face a tough choice. This is what I mean. Urile is one of our star performers right now. There's two things that you have to look at. Number one, he's turning 21. He's turning 21. Which teams would be available for him to go there and do well in? For him to craft the type of career that maybe Abu Dihashwi, when they got to England, and all of those things, would he be able to be a world beater heading over that side? Because I think where maybe we are robbing Rile is with his development. Now hear me out. Coach Rivero has done an incredible job. But where Rile is meant to be in comparison to the other guys is crazy. Where does he stand versus Lamine Yamal? Where does he stand versus some of the youngsters that have come through? About Jude Bellingham. I believe they're the same age, if I'm not mistaken. And how do you develop that part? Would sending him overseas now mean that he now has to learn the things that 16-year-olds that side know or are being taught? And how does that stop his progression? When he goes that side and maybe he chows bench for a year or two learning, how does that stunt his growth and change his growth? For example, you're looking at a Campbell who's at Club Brugge right now. I think he can afford to bench a little bit because he's still got some years on him. He can afford to be taught those things now because he's still got some years on him. And maybe 2 or 3 years from now, you see him emerge as such a great player because he's been immersed in that culture. You think about Abo Penny, who left here early. You think about Abo Steven Pienaar, who basically never played here. How does that affect Relé's chances? That's number one. But then number two is the harder question. Would it be easier for Relé to stay in South Africa and know that he's playing for a Pirates team that hopefully is looking at Africa? He's playing for a Pirates team where he's going to be one of the shot callers, the big players, the guys that are going to influence the game and grow that way. But in that experience that he's gaining, does he lose the basics? We speak about Abu Tembazwane, Abu Shigabala being such great players, but because of that development efficiency we have, Abu Shigabala became great late. Abu Shigabala were exposed to great coaching late. Can Pirates be a team that can develop Relé into a world beater? Does he have to go to Sundowns for that? Or is overseas the better shot? Look at what happened to KCS Mailula. Look at what happened to KCS Mailula, for example. And I understand there's a lot of things that come into that. It's your management, it's the choices, it's the teams that approach, it's the contracts that are available. There's a lot of things. But look at Abu KCS Mailula. Rising star. I believe he's 24. I think he left a little bit too late. And by the time he got that side, a team has to decide, are we going to invest in a 22-year-old or 20-year-old, let's say 20, 21, 22-year-old, when we've got 17-year-olds that are tearing it up, that are ready? I mean, where does he rank versus Nico Williams, for example? Abo Phil Foden at that age. Abo Haaland at that age. So we've already got guys here that we've developed here. But then, do we take a risk on this 21-year-old? And when the 21-year-old gets here, do we still have to teach him about the rest of this football? And this is a bigger problem in SA for me, in that I think the culture of South African football has shifted in terms of development. I think what once was a very development forward-thinking country, development-focused country, khanye selisiwahla, 15 years old coming through, Abo Tso, Abo Mabizela, Abo Aaron Mokoena, Abo Benny McCarthy, Abo Quinton Fortune, players who got very early starts, Abo Lucas speak about these things, who were trusted very early, who were developed well enough that when they got into the PSL, they were head and shoulders above everybody else. You think about the Brazilian league. I was looking at some of the stats. Neymar's stats are incredible for when he was in Brazil. He was embarrassing people. For sure he was meant to leave. How many players do we have that are doing those type of things? I mean, a comparison would be, how many players do we have that are hitting Mbesuma numbers? Fadima Dita numbers? Shalulile numbers? And how many of those players have A, not been in the league for a very long time, but then number two, are young? Who are the players that we're going to be exporting if we're not seeing it now? There was a derby that was played in DDC. There was a derby. Kaizer Chiefs, I believe, is currently number 1 in the DDC. Now, how many of those players could play in the first team of Chiefs next year? How many of the current youth that's sitting on the bench, Abo Mfundo, Abo Shabalala, Abo Zwane, Abo McCarthy, How many of them are ready to play for the Chiefs first team right now? And I believe the culture shift that I was speaking about is more to do with the consequences of doing badly in the league. Coaching in the PSL is an up and down thing. We just saw Coach Gavin get fired. Abu Tendence get fired every year. Every year Abu Coach Siyama get fired. Every team in the PSL is in flux almost every year, outside of a Stellenbosch, outside of Mamelodi Sundowns, up to now recently we'll see with Caruso, up to Orlando Pirates, which now Jose Rivero's in his third year. A lot of the other teams chop and change and chop and change and chop 6 months again, 6 months again. And I think what it does is it creates an environment where you can't develop because you can't take risks. I think personally it seems at times that the league is getting older because the older players are trusted for their experience. So they're brought in and I need to win now. I can't build a star player. I can't build a Sereno because I need the results. I can't build a new Ribeiro. I can't build a South African Ribeiro because I need to hold on to this job with everything I have. There's also been this thing where I think everybody just feels like you can just let them go to Sundowns. Ooh, as for developer man, na sister, kipani mali, there you go. And we've outsourced a lot of the development higher level to Sundowns. I mean, just think about it. Just think about it. Back then, Jomo was sending players directly overseas. Abu Marwaru, Benjani as they call him. Now we knew him as Marwaru. Was playing for Uchomo, played for City. Abu Lucas were going to Leeds. Abu Penny were going directly that side. We've outsourced that development, the key development. You know, there's one thing that Gavin Hunt said about Campbell. And he said about Campbell that, you know, when I coach these youngsters, I coach them so that they can do well overseas. Whether you believe in me or whether you don't believe in me, these are the guys that when they get that side, they click. And it was clear to see. Campbell, also for his own talent and hard work, I don't want to take it away from him too, but Campbell lands at Bruges, DDC at Bruges. Hey, head and shoulders above some of those other players. Didn't have to go through Sundowns. Got there, head and shoulders, is now put into the first team. Within a couple of months of him going that side. Development. He's not 20 yet. Development. Why aren't we seeing more teams doing those type of things? Even monetarily, I'm sure it could be great for teams. But we've outsourced every single thing. We've stopped thinking, we've stopped growing, we've stopped developing. I asked last season, what is the point of the DDC? Because for me, it doesn't make sense. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but for me, it doesn't make sense for a team to have a DDC and then you play in a DDC league where your top under 17, under 18 players are playing together. And then when it's time for them to make the jump to first team football PSL, they're not ready. They're not polished enough. Rather make a reserve league where those players get to play against actual PSL players who are reserves at other clubs so that they can grow faster. There's a reason why Abu Junior Khanye, Abu Tovilagazi, Abu Manyatela and those guys were thrown into first team football quickly. The reason why is so that you can grow. So by the time you're asked to make the jump from PSL to Europe, you're early. You're very early. If you're making your debut at 17 and you can light the league up for a season or two, now you're 19 going overseas or 18 going overseas. It opens up. And what we do is that we create more Percy Tau situations where by the time he got to Brighton, Yes, there was things that happened, but by the time he got to Brighton, it was too late for him. So I think we need to make the decision, and my fear for Urile lies here. We need to make the decision. Are you going to incubate them well enough here that when they get that side, they're of a different level or a similar level to those players? Which means seeing 15-year-olds playing in the PSL so that they can gain those muscles, they can gain that intelligence. Abu Neymar started very young in their leagues. That by the time he hits 17, he's ready to be exported to somewhere else and he's of the level or better than the players that already exist there. Or you take the 15-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, the 17-year-olds, and you forge paths for them to go that side or to better football in order for them to sit in that culture and soak in the culture and grow and learn maybe at the same rate as some of these other players that we're seeing. So there should be a South African player that's playing with Lamine Yamal when he's 15. So that as they progress up, you've got a Lamine Yamal-esque type 17. He's 17, guys. 38 games played, 13 goals, 17 assists. That's 30 goal. That's 30 goal involvements. Yeah, it's 30 goal involvements in 38 games at 17 years old, playing for Barcelona. Youngest scorer youngest in a Euro final, youngest scorer in Nations League history. He just broke that one this time. He's not even 18. Urile scored his debut goal for Bafana at 20, turning 21. I fear for Urile because if he doesn't go now, and if they don't plan that thing out to a T, we could lose him. Or he'll just be a South African star. And again, do you stay at Pirates where you are a South African star? Do you go to Sundowns where maybe there's a bigger profile? Where maybe you can play in a Club World Cup? Or do you go overseas? These are the questions we should be asking not only about Urile. We should be interrogating the development of Abu Mdushabalala. We should be interrogating the development of Abu Fundo Vilagazi, Abu Puso Ditejane. We should be interrogating the development of Abu Velepai, Abu Bartman. Are we improving these players? Are we getting them ready to play at a high level? Or is our system killing those players? The Stellenbosch boys that won last year, DDC, where do they go after that? Where do the large crop of players that are in the DDC go after that? And are they ready to take that next step? What is the point of that thing? Do we need to change our expectations of coaches and say, you know what, Jose, you've got 3 years, man. If you want to bring Abu Mbogazi in, if you want to bring in Abu Rile in, if you want to bring in Abu Nkota, go for it. We're going to back you. Do we have those type of structures? And I again want to send a shout out to Coach Jose, because development is such a tough thing to do. I feel as though a lot of our young players in the country are developing on their own. Have you ever seen a building built without a proper structure? Well, let's say I plant a tree. Let's say you don't put in those little wire things that make it go straight. How would the tree grow? And I feel as though a lot of our youngsters are being free. They're being let to grow. They are being free developed. In that they're the ones that decide their road. And why I give Coach Jose so much credit is you don't get a Rile without a Hoto backing him up. You don't get a Rile without Abu Tito, Abu Mabasa, guys that are able to take pressure off. Or when you inevitably go through those young things. That's why Barcelona, Lamine Yamal, is not just that he's such an incredible player, but the structure around him. You know, Mbogazi next to Koki, I think that's incredible. Sesane next to Nda, that's incredible. Because you structure the growth. But then you look at some of the other players. What's Mfundo getting out of Chiefs right now? Obrigado. Skillful, talented, technical, all of those things. Is there time to sit him down and say, boy, these are the intricacies of the game at a world, at a Euro, at a whatever level. We're going to take that talent that you have and we're going to build on top of it. Lamine Yamal is gifted. I am pretty sure Mofokeng is as gifted. I'm pretty sure Vilakazi is as gifted. I'm pretty sure Shabalala is as gifted. I'm pretty sure Abozwane are as gifted. But the difference here is La Masia and Barcelona and the intention of building the players. Bo Pedri. Look at how Phil Foden, look at how Phil Foden's development was done and slowed down. And okay, here, and we tweak there, and we're going to allow you until you become a star. There's been other lucky ones like Abu Saka, who had to carry a team from young. But look at the intention. Abu Jude Bellingham. Abu Haaland. Are we doing that for our players? You don't want to see a relay who could have been. Think about where Lodge could have been if he was Lodge at 18 years old. If he had 100 PSL games, oh no, we've got a small league. Okay, if he had 50 PSL games by the time he turned 18 and he was exported. And this is not rocket science. This is what we used to do before. It's either I make you good enough to go that side or I make you good enough to be able to walk through the door that side and prove yourself. I am worried for Mofokeng. I am worried for his development. I am worried for his ceiling. Hopefully, the people involved, Pirates, his management, Coach Rivero, everybody, are working towards making sure that they structure him and making sure that they structure all of the youth. Guys, that has been the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share. Go on to Spotify and listen. Please, guys, it's going to be on Spotify. Listen. Listen to it there. I'm trying to also build on that side on audio. So please support as much as you can. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye, everyone.